This changes everything. This court judgment that nullifies INEC's election timetable changes everything. Changes everything for everybody. It changes it for APC, for Tinubu. It changes it for ADC. It changes it for NDC, Nigerian Democratic Party, and for Peter Obi. It changes it for the PDP. In fact, this court judgment changes everything. And I must say that I did not see it coming. Whoever is the mastermind behind this, I must confess, took everybody by surprise. One immediate takeaway from this is that maybe Tinubu is not 100% in charge of the judiciary after all. Don't you think so? Does it not look like the control that Tinubu has over the judiciary is not 100%? There's still some, maybe 10% or maybe 5%, that are not under the control of Tinubu and the APC. That is what this judgment tells me. Because this judgment scatters everything that APC and Tinubu has planned. That initial plan of trapping Peter Obi in the African Democratic Congress, this court judgment scatters it. The initial projection about ADC becoming a lame duck, becoming a paralyzed political party for the 2027, this court judgment changes that. The initial projection about Jonathan being a credible candidate or actually being an acceptable candidate, considering that it is the Turaki-led PDP that has adopted him as their consensus candidate, not the Wike faction. So this changes everything for everybody. But it also gives opportunities for those who have been internally displaced politicians, IDPs, within the All Progressive Congress, APC. Gives them a new opportunity. People like Fubara, people like Ned Nwoko, they have an opportunity at giving it a second shot, decamping from the APC to another political party. So it changes everything. But now the thing is, who is behind this? It certainly is not Tinubu. Who is behind it? Now we know it is a youth party that went to court to get this judgment. They sued INEC and they prayed the court to grant their reliefs, which have been granted. And so, the courts have nullified the election timetable of INEC. And they are basing it on the Electoral Act 2026. Tinubu did not see this coming. You had an APC chieftain that went on Channels TV to say that, oh, well, the National Assembly lawmakers shot themselves in the foot by passing the Electoral Act 2026. Because majority of them, up to like 60% of them, have lost their ticket to come back to the National Assembly. And because of the initial May 10 deadline, they were boxed in to the APC. So, but with this judgment now, all of that is thrown open once again. That's why I say somebody is trying to outsmart APC. This is not an APC doing. For you to get a judge to give this kind of judgment in a Nigeria that we are in today, it says to me that there's still hope. There's still hope for Nigeria. All is not lost. As everything changes with this new judgment, I am particularly concerned for Peter Obi and the Nigerian Democratic Congress, the NDC. And I'm using the opportunity to sound a warning to Peter Obi and to the NDC, because think about it. Now that the judgment has nullified INEC's election timetable, many of the IDPs, I like to use that word, has a nice ring to it. Internally displaced politicians, not internally displaced persons. All the internally displaced politicians within the APC will now be looking for another party to go to get ticket. And because they understand the Obi factor, particularly those who rode on the backs of Peter Obi before, and those who learned from that, we want to now flood the NDC to get tickets. And of course, the NDC wants to grow, so their doors will be open to every Tom, Dick, and Harry. Particularly because a political party is not the personal property of anybody. And nobody can stop anybody from joining any political party. So what happens when people like Neda Emaswen, people like Ned Nwoko, even Sim Fubara, people like Desmond Elliott, even people like Cubana Chief Priest, what happens when they now flood the NDC? What happens? Already we have complaints and issues within the NDC, particularly the Imo State chapter, where you have complaints that persons loyal to Emeka Ihedioha, persons loyal to him and loyal to Atiku, have hijacked the party in that state. And they are spending their monies, of course, to try buy up that state chapter. It becomes a problem. Why is it a problem? Because what happened in 2023, when people rode on the back of Peter Obi to get elected, could possibly happen again in 2027. Because they will come all acting all born again, all changed, until they get elected. And then they defect back to the APC. So what can the NDC do? I mentioned it before. I think we should not get tired of mentioning it. Peter Obi, please take note. Seriake Dixon, please take note. It is good that you organized an aspirant summit to try educate them on the ideals of NDC and what is expected of the aspirants. But you need to go beyond just training them. You need to insist on them signing an undated resignation letter. They have to sign it. Because the ways through which lawmakers can be removed from the National Assembly or the State House of Assembly is by either they resign, they decamp from a political party when there is no division, they are recalled through a recall process supervised by INEC, or they die. So resignation, they can resign. So all of the persons, and I'm saying this because I know that screening is ongoing for the aspirants on the platform of the Nigerian Democratic Congress. They must be made to sign an undated resignation letter, so that once they just resign, that letter can be tendered to the National Assembly so that we can force a rerun election. And it should not just be an undated resignation letter. It should also be a registered affidavit, registered with the Commissioner of Oaths, so that it becomes a binding contract between the aspirants and the Nigerian Democratic Congress. If you don't put these measures in place, all of the IDPs from the other political parties, particularly the APC, they will infiltrate NDC and then get money where they don't thief. They will use their money and then buy their way through the NDC, get elected on the popularity of Peter Obi and Kwankwaso, and then decamp afterwards. We don't want that. So this is particularly important as a note, a public service warning to Peter Obi and NDC. Please take note of that. So this court judgment changes everything. It shows, for me, how weak Tinubu really is. I know they like to drive the narrative and the propaganda that Tinubu is a master strategist. But even in all his master strategy, he did not see this court judgment coming. And that makes two things that have been beyond his control. First, he did not see the decamping of Peter Obi coming. He didn't. And he also did not see this judgment coming. Now, even if INEC will appeal this judgment, because they can appeal, what are the chances that the Court of Appeal will uphold this judgment? Or that the Supreme Court will uphold this judgment? The chances are almost 100%. Because the judgment is based on the Electoral Act. And the Electoral Act is backed by the Constitution. So it's very likely that INEC is not going to appeal this judgment. And it's also very likely that even if INEC appealed it, the higher courts will uphold it. And so it changes everything for APC, for everybody, but particularly APC. Tinubu must be at the drawing table now, planning how to mitigate this. But for us, it is a sign of hope that Tinubu can be defeated. That those who say Tinubu is a one-term president are not joking. But something has to be done differently. And that's to make sure that the elections of 2027 is free and fair. Free and fair. And to do that, we cannot rely on INEC alone. Think about it. If in 2023 we had the glitch, now people say they are wiser. People are preparing, no, there must not be glitch, there must not be glitch. But can we rely on INEC for there not to be glitch? In fact, what if INEC has taken that glitch up a notch, such that the way they will even implement the glitch this time around, we won't even see it, you know? Fam, it's done. The only solution is a people-powered parallel vote tabulation across all the polling units in Nigeria to guarantee real-time electronic result transmission from the polling unit to the Vote Watch platform, as they are doing it on the IREV. And then real-time electronic result collation directly from the polling unit to serve as safeguard for when they take the results into the collation abyss, the collation gap, the collation darkness, where the manipulations are, where they take place. So Vote Watch, Vote Watch, Vote Watch. For me, it seems as though God keeps serving Nigerians opportunities to see that there's hope. God just wants to remind Nigerians that Tinubu is not such a master strategist. This court judgment demystifies Tinubu and it demystifies the APC. And it gives hope to Nigerians. It gives hope to the OK movement. But that hope should not be taken for granted. And we should not rest on our oars. We should not now relax and say, yes, Tinubu is not a master strategist. He has been defeated twice. First by Peter Obi, now by this court judgment. And then we now give up and relax. No. He will go and re-strategize, and so must we. Who are those that will take advantage of this opportunity? We'll wait and see as things unfold.